David Ortiz, as we all know, won the MVP of the World Series. However, Colin Cowherd, ESPN radio host and personality, had some interesting comments. I believe that we are all allowed to be a little suspicious when it comes to Major League Baseball and guys who appeared to be over the hump at one point, but Colin Cowherd may have taken it to another level. So let's pull up those quotes very quickly. Here's what he said. David Ortiz, who was shot 2 years ago, is now Babe Ruth.
I've read it the same way twice.
That's
I'm like, David Ortiz was shot 2 years ago? I totally missed that story.
Yeah, he made a great comeback.
Yeah.
That's a great story, and his story of getting shot. And I don't want to get in the way of that great story because it will make people really, really mad. Last time I saw a guy like this, it was Barry Bonds, but sports is about storytelling and hero worship and cool nicknames and oh boy, that's a big one. Fans get mad when you derail that. Here was a guy in May 2009 batting .222 with a slugging percentage of .300, no injuries, couldn't hit. The Red Sox as a team are hitting about .190 in the World Series. He said this on Wednesday. He's hitting .800 against pitchers he didn't face all year. Significantly better today than several years ago. Interesting story. The story of David Ortiz hitting .733, about as believable as Bigfoot. Ben?
The only thing is that I agree with Colin Cowherd. I would not have said it that sort of definitively. We are in an era where if you don't question, well, you can choose not to question it because you don't want to, but if you don't question the sluggers of this era, you just weren't paying attention. I mean,
David Ortiz, just in denial.
Right. David Ortiz hit more than 50 home runs again and again in a season where everyone around him was doing steroids, and he was named in that 2003 report, which had very little substance to it, except it was a report of guys who had used. The testing process at that point had guys who would have tested positive if they had taken over-the-counter supplements. So, it's possible that he took over-the-counter supplements, and that's why he tested positive. But in an era when his teammates were doing it and every other big slugger was doing it, and it's a guy who was thought of as, granted, the Red Sox made a great decision, recognized his talent, taking him from Minnesota.
Yes.
But he was not a bad hitter in Minnesota. He was a platoon player. But, so they took him, and then he got great in an era when everyone was doing this. So
it's so cool. Unusual, not unprecedented, but unusual that somebody at this age, 6 or 7 years after what was supposed to be his prime, is doing this well also. Everybody has a right to be suspicious of these ball players. I mean, I'm sure the people who play with him are all going to say things like, I never saw him do it, there's no way he's doing it. At this point, I would guess it's harder not to be clean than it was before.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
And I think that, but I think he's well within his rights to be suspicious. But, it's so rare to see somebody of this age have better bat speed than they seem to have had before.
Yeah, that's the one thing that stuck out to me too.
But it's not, it doesn't mean that he doesn't, they all say they work harder than anybody else. I mean, nobody worked harder than Barry Bonds, according to everyone who played with him.
We don't know.
That doesn't mean anything.
We don't know how steroids works, all of us, because like his power numbers were actually down a little bit this year, still quite good for a guy of his age. And he hit 1 home run in the World Series. He was hitting singles.
I was going to say 7 of his 11 hits going into, I believe, last night were
but
singles.
Part of it's because he's slow. I mean, they were.
He also had 1 big hit. Would we be still having this conversation if he didn't have that, the grand slam? Yes, we probably would. But
then again, the part about pitchers he'd never faced before, he's faced pitchers his whole life.
That's silly.
That was silly. He hit like below 200. He hit like 133 against the Tigers.
He hit less than 133. I think it was like under 100.
Maybe 091 he hit against the Tigers.
I think it was 079.
So he, was he not using the steroids then?
No, he took a break.
Right, but we don't know. Like, if he took a bunch right after that series, does it work that quickly?
It also doesn't mean, even when everyone was taking it, no one was hitting 700 for a season or 800 for a season.
Right.
They were hitting in the 300s or they were hitting more home runs, which he did. So in defense of Ortiz, he didn't do well against the Tigers. He had a great World Series. People forever have been, what about David Freese? Why are we not talking about David Freese? He was an average middle-of-the-year player who had an extraordinary World Series.
Right, but he had 2 remarkable hits.
No, I understand, but you know what I'm saying? It's like where there's smoke, there's often fire, and certainly there's smoke around David.
Can we pull up the other quote very quickly? I believe this is from Awful Announcing. Oh, and that 2003 doping list. An MLBPA statement from 2009 indicates that the number of players on the list exceeds the number of positive tests from 2003, and that legal supplements could trigger a positive result due to flaws in the testing process. Saying Ortiz has a link to PEDs because of that New York Times report is shoddy journalism, considering how few... Yeah? Oh, I thought you were going to say something, Michael. Sorry. How few specifics are known about the doping list. Besides, if Ortiz was a PED abuser, wouldn't he have been caught in the previous decade like Manny Ramirez, also mentioned as being on that list?
Yeah. Well,
so I thought that was pretty good.
I think that's a good critique of taking the other side. I think that's a good way to take the other side here. I mean, if you're going to take the other side, I think that it's perfectly fair to do that.
I think they're both wrong. Because like Alex Rodriguez was never caught. Barry Bonds was never caught.
Yeah.
Right,
Mark McGwire was never caught.
Right, they didn't test positive. They all did steroids. Sammy Sosa ever caught?
I don't think so. Rafael Palmeiro caught.
Palmeiro caught, right. But, so, look, man, like you just have to, it's frustrating, but what Cowherd is most right about is that we get our hair up because we don't want the story screwed up. And the story is so good.
Right.
And David Ortiz is so unbelievably likable. Like for everything that what makes it hard for me to thoroughly hate the Red Sox is David Ortiz. That you watch the press conference and John Lester's kid comes in and interrupts while John Lester's talking. And Lester's like, shh, and the kid jumps up and Ortiz is like, I didn't get my hug. And the kid comes over and hug. And you're like, David Ortiz.